Why does it feel like Kristaps Porzingis is disappearing in the fourth quarter for the Dallas Mavericks? This is the gray area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can catch me on your home of the Cowboys and Texas Rangers 105.3 The Fan. The Dallas Mavericks went on the road to Houston and lost 102-93, where they collapsed in the final 2 minutes and 35 seconds of that game after it was tied at 89. The Rockets go on a 7-0 run to go on to win that game, dropping the Mavericks to 28-22 on the season. But the story coming out of that game wasn't necessarily what happened in the final 2.5 minutes of the fourth quarter, or was it the fact that the Rockets were in the penalty with 7 minutes and 48 seconds left in the fourth quarter, and the Dallas Mavericks refused to attack the rim like they needed to put themselves in a position to try and win this game. The story coming out of this game was the disappearing act of Kristaps Porzingis in the fourth quarter. In that fourth quarter, he played 6 minutes and 52 seconds and scored as many points as I did in that game in the fourth quarter. 0. In fact, Kristaps Porzingis in his last 9 games since the All-Star break takes 2.1 field goal attempts and averages 2.9 points in the fourth quarter, only getting 1 rebound and 0.3 blocks in just 6.1 minutes in 9 games in the fourth quarter. So his production, while yes, was good with the 23 points and 12 rebounds, was good from a counting number standpoint. It's really curious how this team does not find a way to get the ball to Porzingis, especially in the fourth quarter. In fact, Kristaps Porzingis was even miffed about what happened in the fourth quarter against the Houston Rockets. Listen to this quote from a question from ESPN's Tim McMahon about why Kristaps Porzingis wasn't more involved in the fourth quarter. Take a listen.
KP, why do you think you weren't able to get involved offensively in the fourth quarter?
Good question. It's just the plays we were running happened for also.
So Kristaps Porzingis answering the question with, good question. It was just the plays that they were running, which is interesting because in the fourth quarter, since February 3rd, the Dallas Mavericks are 114.3 in terms of offensive rating, which is good for 12th in the NBA. But yet at the same time, the lack of production for Kristaps Porzingis in the fourth quarters is puzzling. Folks have been jumping in my comments, jumping in my mentions about, well, maybe there's a lack of on-court chemistry between Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. That still doesn't explain why in fourth quarters, Kristaps Porzingis isn't getting the basketball the way that he needs to in order to be a contributor to fourth quarters the way that the Mavericks will need him to be, especially come playoff time. This has been a very interesting season for Kristaps Porzingis as he has been in the middle of trade rumors. There was even a more recent report about the idea that the Warriors tried to make a move potentially for Kristaps Porzingis at the trade deadline and may pursue a trade for Kristaps Porzingis this offseason. Then we get the news the other day that Kristaps Porzingis has been dealing with a sprained right wrist since January, and he spoke to the idea that he may have to deal with that in the offseason to get it corrected.
It felt good. It feels good now. I think that's something I will deal with at the end of the season, in the offseason. So for now, I'll just try to go as much as I can, and hopefully it holds up.
So just another set of circumstances that a 7'3" Latvian star has been dealing with: trade rumors, potential injury concerns with the sprained right wrist. Now questions about whether or not the fourth quarter production or lack thereof is a long-term trend going forward for a team that's going to need to find itself now at 28-22, winning as many games as they can after falling to a Houston Rockets team that they had no business doing so on the road after winning 5 straight games, going 4-1 on a successful road trip, then being able to have the opportunity to continue that momentum on the road against the Houston Rocket basketball team, and you weren't able to do it. Now you're facing games against some of the top teams in all of the Eastern Conference, starting with the Milwaukee Bucks and then taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. Not to mention, you're going to be welcoming the Los Angeles Lakers in at the end of the month in April, where it appears that Anthony Davis is close to a return, and we still don't know the status of LeBron James. The lack of fourth quarter production for Kristaps Porzingis is going to be interesting to watch going forward. But his comments really rang loud as far as the post game was concerned with respect to Rick Carlisle and the idea that the plays that they were running weren't necessarily being effective enough for Kristaps Porzingis. This is something that's going to need to be monitored going forward, because the fact that the 7'3" Latvian star is not feeling included in the offense and has said so in those comments that you just heard, that this has happened before, that's not a good look for a team that needs to have both of its stars. Yes, I know Luka Doncic had an off night, and we all have an off night every now and then. Luka Doncic, the all-world, first-team All-NBA star, is entitled to have an off night every now and then, going 9 of 26 from the field. It happens to the best of us. But for Kristaps Porzingis to not be involved in the fourth quarter speaks to a larger concept that's going to have to be corrected as you start looking at the last set of basketball games that this team is going to be playing. A team that now at 28 and 22, 50 games into the season with 22 games left, are going to need to continue to find a way to make sure that Kristaps Porzingis, who by his own admission during this season said, hey, I want to play longer stretches in the first quarter. And Rick Carlisle obliged him. He's been playing longer stretches in the first quarter, playing 9-10 minutes apiece in the first quarter of basketball games since he has returned and made those requests known publicly. And now he's been able to find a better rhythm in the first quarter, playing longer stretches in the third quarter, doing so to continue to get his rhythm going. In the game against the Houston Rockets, had 10 points in the third quarter. So you see how much more Kristaps Porzingis wants to play, but more importantly, when it comes down to crunch time, how much more involved he wants to be in the offense. Now, the question to whether or not there's on-court chemistry or the lack thereof between Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. We're still relatively new into this experience with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Yes, I know we're a year into it, but at the same time, the lack of continuity that they had together prior to the bubble due to Kristaps Porzingis' injury, and then obviously him coming back from a torn meniscus in January, you're still learning how this team is functioning together with Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic on the floor together. But there's no mistake about it. There are times when Luka Doncic sees a wide open Kristaps Porzingis and he ain't passing the ball to him. I don't know what that is. But at the same time, it needs to be fixed. It needs to be corrected, because now, as we spin this forward, Kristaps Porzingis, whether or not he's a part of this basketball team in the future of it going forward, which Mark Cuban said at the trade deadline, look, we're not trading Kristaps Porzingis. So he's made that clear, at least for this season. That doesn't say anything about going into this offseason, about whether or not, if there's potential friction between Rick Carlisle and Kristaps Porzingis in terms of the play calling, whether it be in the fourth quarter, or the fact that Kristaps Porzingis had to make it known very clearly and publicly that he wanted to play more minutes in the first quarter to get a better rhythm throughout games. Whether or not all those things continue to come to a head will remain to be seen as this season goes on and then into the offseason, about the autopsy that will look like when this season is completed, however deep the Mavericks are able to make it in the playoffs, if they make it in with the play-in game. Because right now, as it currently stands, they're sitting 7th in the Western Conference, which means they're in the play-in situation right now, which is not where they want to be, as they sit a couple of games behind the Portland Trailblazers. It might as well be 3 games, because of the fact that Portland won the season series against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks missed a golden opportunity against the Houston Rockets, and as Tim Hardaway said in his post-game comments, look, the Rockets outworked us, but more importantly, if you were paying attention, the Portland Trailblazers lost on Tuesday, which means we had an opportunity to make up some ground against the Houston Rockets, and we failed to do so. Part of that might have been the fact that Kristaps Porzingis did not find himself playing in the fourth quarter the way that he needed to. He re-entered that fourth quarter with 6 minutes and 52 seconds left and didn't take a single shot or a single free throw. Persona non grata, disappearing at Kristaps Porzingis was. You say, Kevin, well, he was trying to be effective in setting screens and doing other things on the offensive end. You got to get some shots up and, more importantly, create some offense for your second best player, theoretically, on your basketball team for him to have an effect. That simply didn't happen. But for this Mavericks team to go where they want to go, balance for Kristaps Porzingis, not just in terms of minutes in the first and third quarter, but when it counts most. We say, Kevin, the Mavericks were hunting for matchups, trying to set screens with guys like Jalen Brunson to free up Luka Doncic to create matchups to be able to create some things. Well, Luka Doncic made some poor decisions with the basketball by not driving it the way that he needed to and settled for threes. The Mavericks really settled for threes, especially when they had shot those 3 straight threes with 2 minutes and 35 seconds left. They didn't give themselves the kind of opportunity they needed to try and steal a game on the road, where they struggled and slogged offensively all night long. But for Kristaps Porzingis, listen in between the lines of what he's saying. KP's frustrated. And that message from him is starting to get louder and louder, no matter how passive-aggressive it may be. It'll be interesting to see how the Mavericks move forward and whether or not Kristaps Porzingis will be a part of the fourth quarters the way that he is in the first and the third. We'll see. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. This has been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.